Upon a narrow bridge of stone, deep within the mines of Moria, a small wizard stands alone. In one hand, a sword, in the other, a staff. Before him towers a colossal being of shadow and flame, a demon wrapped in smoke, fire coiling around it like a living storm. With a final act of defiance, the wizard shatters the bridge beneath them. Stone collapses, flame roars, the abyss opens, and as the creature falls, dragged into the dark lake far below, the Fellowship escapes. That moment, the duel between Gandalf and the Balrog upon the bridge of Khazad-dûm has carved itself into modern myth. Tolkien readers remember it, film audiences remember it. But let us pause the scene, freeze the falling fire, silence the echoing chasm. What exactly is the Balrog? Is it a living organism, flesh and blood concealed beneath flame? Or is it something else entirely? A spirit wearing fire as armor, a solid mass of darkness that should not, by any known law of physics, be able to stand, move, or strike? How can shadow possess weight? How can flame hold form? Let us investigate. Hello, this is ORCOLOGIST, specialist in the study of magical creatures. First, allow me to clarify a crucial detail. Balrogs are not, strictly speaking, demons. Balrogs are fallen Maya. They were once Ainur, primordial spirits, drawn into rebellion by Morgoth during the cosmic music of the Ainulindala that brought Arda into being. Their essence is spiritual. Their physical form is a binding, a manifestation. Their will is intertwined with Morgoth's own. Let us analyze the Balrog biologically based on what we see. 1. The Balrog's shell and muscular system. First, the shell. On screen, the Balrog clearly interacts with its environment. Each step produces subtle tremors. Stone cracks beneath its weight. This is no intangible wraith. It exerts force. It obeys gravity, which means it possesses a physical structure. In materials science, silicon carbide, SiC, is a ceramic of extraordinary hardness and thermal resistance. It is used in heavy industry, braking systems, heat treatment equipment, and semiconductors. If we imagine the Balrog's exterior composed of a similar silicon-carbon lattice, we arrive at an elegant explanation. A body that appears rocky and fractured, yet remains structurally resilient under unimaginable heat stress. But structure alone does not create motion. So how does it move? Observe carefully. Beneath the cracked surface, we see flows of molten light, lava-like currents coursing through its frame. The Balrog shows no visible bones, no blood, no discernible organs. Instead, it appears hollow, animated by magma. This leads to a hypothesis: magma hydraulics. Imagine its body as a network of cavities within the ceramic shell. Molten material flows through these chambers. By altering internal pressure, increasing it in one region, decreasing it in another, the Balrog generates movement. Just as hydraulic systems power industrial machinery, magma becomes its muscular engine. But a question arises. Lava is fluid. How does it deliver impact force? The answer may lie in non-Newtonian fluid dynamics. If the Balrog's internal magma behaves as a non-Newtonian fluid, then when it moves slowly, it flows freely, generating thrust. But at the moment of attack, molecular alignment could cause rapid solidification, turning liquid fire into something momentarily as rigid as stone or harder. A blow delivered under such conditions would be devastating. In The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien does not explicitly assign the Balrog a measurable weight, yet both book and film share a decisive detail. When Gandalf breaks the bridge of Khazad-dûm, the Balrog falls. It falls. It does not dissolve. It does not float. It obeys gravity. Tolkien also writes that it drew itself up to a great height, diminishing Gandalf by comparison, implying vertical mass and spatial presence. Later, when Gandalf recounts the battle to Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, he describes their plunge into the deep waters beneath Moria. The Balrog's fire was quenched, he says, and it became a thing of slime, stronger than a strangling snake. This detail is extraordinary. If the Balrog's internal magma encountered sudden immersion in cold water, rapid thermal shock could have transformed it into a viscous, semi-solid mass, neither flame nor stone, but something adhesive, serpentine, suffocating. A catastrophic phase change. Fire becomes slime. Heat becomes grip. From the evidence available, we can cautiously conclude the Balrog possesses an outer shell composed of an ultra-heat-resistant, ultra-hardened material, perhaps analogous to silicon-carbon ceramics. Its motion may be driven by a magma hydraulic system powered by lava-like non-Newtonian fluid. Its fall into water suggests genuine mass and thermodynamic transformation. And now, a deeper question emerges. If such a massive, complex, magma-driven structure exists, what or who is controlling it? 2. The singularity of malice and the solid heat core. Here we move from physics into metaphysics, but the logic, I believe, still holds. In both Tolkien's original legendarium and its cinematic adaptation, one detail stands out with unsettling clarity. The Balrog never speaks. It does not taunt. It does not negotiate. It does not hesitate. It advances. It strikes. It destroys. This silence makes the Balrog resemble something disturbingly modern, a war machine guided by artificial intelligence, an entity stripped of personality, executing a single directive. And yet, such a comparison may be too mechanical for J.R.R. Tolkien's theological universe. For Tolkien, evil is not automation, it is corruption. So perhaps there is another explanation. From the beginning, the Balrog was a Maya, a primordial spirit. When it fell with Morgoth, that fall may not have been merely moral, but ontological. An infinite spiritual being collapsing into a finite physical vessel. Imagine what such compression would do. An eternal soul, forced into matter, emotion erodes, complexity fractures, will condenses. What remains is something hardened, like a black diamond forged under impossible pressure. A consciousness reduced to a singular directive, destruction. We might call this phenomenon a crystallized will. Somewhere within the Balrog's vast frame, perhaps in its head, perhaps deep within its core, this crystallized will acts as the command center. Not a brain of flesh, but a metaphysical nucleus. A singularity of malice that governs the enormous body it inhabits. But this leads us to the next question. If a crystallized will controls the body, what powers it? Energy. To animate a structure of such magnitude, lifting stone limbs that weigh tens of tons, leaping across the chasms of Moria, generating flame intense enough to melt steel, requires power on an industrial scale. In our world, only nuclear energy produces such density of output. And here, Tolkien's language offers us a clue. Balrogs are fallen Maya. What if that fall was not only spiritual rebellion, but a catastrophic collapse of radiant spirit into condensed thermal mass? Not a pure nuclear reactor, but something adjacent, a dense thermal core born from metaphysical implosion. Instead of light, it radiates heat. Instead of harmony, it radiates pressure. This solid heat core would burn perpetually within the Balrog's shell, providing continuous energy. Like an excavator powered by hydraulic pressure or a massive industrial robotic arm driven by internal combustion, the Balrog's thermal core could generate immense pressure that forces molten material, magma, through its body. This pressure would animate its limbs, drive its strikes, launch its massive frame across halls carved from living stone. In this model, two elements become fundamental to the Balrog's existence: crystallized will, the condensed, hardened consciousness that commands; thermal core, the dense energy source that powers. Together, they form something terrifyingly efficient, a fallen spirit locked inside a reactor. And here is where things become even more interesting, because if a solid heat core truly exists within the Balrog, it may also explain something else entirely: its darkness. Would you like to hear how? 3. The shadow of the Balrog. In the cinematic vision of the Balrog, we see more than flame. We see smoke, thick, black, suffocating. But this is not ordinary smoke drifting from a fire. It feels like darkness itself has taken form. Both in Tolkien's original text and in the film adaptation, the Balrog manifests with a striking duality: fire within, darkness without. Flame pulses from its core, yet its outer shape is wrapped in shadow, and that shadow does not merely cling to it, it spreads outward, unfurling like vast wings. If the theory of a solid thermal core, a kind of internal nuclear furnace, holds true, then the Balrog's darkness may not be purely mystical. It may be a physical consequence of extreme thermodynamics. Imagine a core so hot that it does more than burn. It pyrolyzes the surrounding environment, breaking down organic matter at the molecular level. In the coal-rich depths of Moria, such heat would constantly decompose carbon-based materials, generating ultra-fine carbon particles, nanocarbons, suspended in the air. A cloud of black carbon dust would naturally gather around the creature. Now add another layer. If the Balrog's internal magma circulates violently, rich in iron and conductive minerals, it could generate a powerful magnetic field. With such a field, two extraordinary effects become possible. Dust trapping effect. Carbon particles produced through thermal decomposition can become electrically charged. A strong magnetic field could act as a containment cage, preventing the dust from dispersing. The result? A permanent halo of darkness suspended around the Balrog within a fixed radius. Illusory wings. When the Balrog moves, when it raises its arms or surges forward, fluctuations in the magnetic field would alter the shape of this suspended dust cloud. The particles would align along magnetic field lines, spreading outward in dramatic arcs. To an observer, this would resemble enormous wings of shadow unfurling in wrath. In our world, we have glimpsed similar phenomena. Consider vantablack, a material composed of carbon nanotubes. Light entering this structure does not reflect back. It becomes trapped, converted into heat. The result is not simply black, but a near-total absence of visible reflection. Envision the Balrog's shadow as a magnetic carbon cloud. When its immense energy core generates a fluctuating magnetic field, the dust locks into place, forming shapes like wings, storm fronts, or towering plumes that cannot be scattered by wind. Tolkien describes the darkness as spreading out like wings. Perhaps what he described poetically is, in speculative terms, carbon particles traveling along magnetic flux lines, much like the sun confines millions of tons of plasma in enormous magnetic loops. Where the sun binds fire, the Balrog binds ash. Unlike the dragon, a biological instrument of war, the Balrog resembles something else entirely, a conscious nuclear warhead. And this raises a fascinating comparison. Have you ever placed dragons and Balrogs side by side? One born of corruption and evolution, the other a fallen spirit clad in thermodynamic armor. I suspect we have only begun to understand these two terrifying species. 4. Balrog versus Dragon. Power scaling analysis between Dragon and Balrog is interesting, but also difficult. Determining whether dragons or Balrogs are stronger is nearly impossible, and perhaps beside the point. Instead, let us examine something far more revealing: their nature. It is evident that dragons possess emotion. Consider Smaug. He delights in the gleam of gold. He swells with pride when praised. He toys with riddles out of curiosity when speaking with Bilbo. His cruelty is not mechanical, it is savoured. Or take Glaurung, who derives almost artistic pleasure from psychologically tormenting Turin Turambar. Dragons do not merely destroy, they enjoy the fruits of their destruction. Though they serve Morgoth, dragons retain immense ego. They claim territories, they hoard treasure, they build personal domains. Their allegiance does not erase their individuality. The happiness of a dragon is the satisfaction of a supreme predator. They live as tyrant kings, ruling over wastelands of their own making. Balrogs are different. They are Maya, primordial spirits, who surrendered themselves to Morgoth from the dawn of creation. Over time, a fallen Maya loses the ability to freely shift form, to wear different fanar. They become locked into a single manifestation. In the case of the Balrog, that form is fire and shadow. Their will is consumed by Morgoth's will. They do not hoard gold. They do not establish kingdoms. They do not converse with prey. They appear as generals, executioners, instruments of annihilation. Their existence is cyclical destruction. Because they were once divine beings, their imprisonment in a fiery shell is not merely transformation, it is exile, a perpetual confinement. They no longer experience joy or sorrow. What remains is something like pure energy of hatred. Dragons have biological needs: food, sleep, rest, even play. They possess a life beyond warfare. They may act monstrously, but they understand their actions and often revel in them. Balrogs resemble Morgoth's flaming swords, and swords do not feel joy. They only cut. Yet here lies a tragedy we rarely acknowledge. It is not about their power, it is about their death. Dragons die epically. Their deaths leave scars on the world, physical and cultural. Songs are sung of Turin's slaying of Glaurung. Ballads remember Bard's arrow striking Smaug. Dragon blood, scales, and even the knowledge of their existence enter legend and craft. Dragons die as masterful villains. They are cursed, feared, but also admired. They continue to live in story, in memory, in whispered tales by the fire. But Balrogs, their death is different. When the Balrog of Moria, known only as Durin's Bane, falls before Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings, what remains? No colossal skeleton, no scales forged into shields, no relic to display. Its body dissolves into dust, smoke, and fading heat. It vanishes like a nightmare at dawn. Most of Middle-earth does not memorialize Balrogs. They are regarded as stains on history, fallen angelic beings too terrible, too alien, to enshrine in song. People remember dragons with a mixture of awe and terror. Balrogs are remembered with discomfort. No one knows the true name of the Balrog in Moria. It is called only Durin's Bane. It had no final speech, no dramatic farewell. It perished like a machine whose power source was cut. In a sense, dragons continue to exist. A child in the Shire gasps at the sight of a dragon-shaped firework. A warrior dons a helm, crested with a golden drake. The dragon remains embedded in the world's mythology. Feared, yes, but woven into its cultural fabric. The Balrog leaves nothing behind. No monument bears its likeness, no lanterns are shaped in its image. It lingers only as a shadow the world wishes to forget. Perhaps that is the ultimate curse of the fallen Ainur, to possess the power of something godlike, yet to be remembered as nothing more than a blemish upon time. In the end, Smaug keeps his gold and his legend. The Balrog inherits only cold silence. This is ORCOLOGIST. Thank you for watching.